member of the California Arts Council and Beverly Hills Arts Commission, is the former West Coast editor of Andy Warhol's Interview magazine and society editor of the Herald Examiner. Her cover stories can be read in Venice and Detour magazines, and she is a contributing editor to California Apparel News. For the next half hour, Joan will bring you inside news and views on society, art, film, and the exhilarating worlds of these multifaceted people. Here is Joan Quinn.
Hello, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to Joan Quinn, etc. Our guests are Peter Alexander and Count Heinrich von Spreti from Sotheby's in Munich. But let's stay closer to home with artist Peter Alexander. He was born in Los Angeles in 1939. He has a Bachelor's of Arts and a Master of Fine Arts from UCLA. His work has been exhibited in museums and galleries throughout the United States and Europe. There are Peter Alexanders in numerous corporate and public collections, and he's been an artist in residence at several colleges. He's been awarded a fellowship from the National Endowment of the Arts, and Peter, welcome. You're an artist who's worked in many, many mediums. Tell us a little bit about the different span of your career in different mediums.
Thank you, Joan. The materials always seem to be a reflection of what's going on at the time. Meaning, for an example, in the 60s, I was working in resins, and a lot of that had to do with the fact I was surfing a lot. And that's where the whole idea came from. And also, I think it had to do with a certain kind of optimism.
And what did you do with the resins at that point? You were making sculptures more than regular thought of painting.
They were cast.
I see.
Sort of freestanding pieces. And they were sort of, I sort of imagined them as being frozen water.
Very romantic.
Very romantic. Sort of slightly Zen-like. And so they were about, as I say, they had a kind of optimism about them.
So the colors, as you say, were very soft.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And from resin, where did you go?
Then I did that for about 5 years. And then when we moved up to the Santa Monica Mountains, I started doing sunsets. A la
sunsets.
Right here.
A decade of sunsets.
A decade of sunsets. And that was provoked by, I got really tired of the materials, of using resin, and I wanted to do pictures. And I thought about the dumbest picture that I could possibly do would be a sunset. But it was also provoked by really very strong feelings about seeing the sun set every day as I was sort of working on this house.
And it was different every day.
And it was different every day. So I started out by doing what I thought would be a month of sunsets. And so I did one on sort of October 16th, 1972, and then on October 17th. And I think I got into about 10 days of them and said, enough of that. But it was a combination of a very sort of strong visceral response to these things and saying to myself, what can be done with it?
And
how do you do it?
What were you using? You were using paper and pastel, or paper and watercolor?
Pastels.
Pastels.
Yeah.
And that was a real change from resin, though.
Yes and no. I mean, it was. I suppose the one thing that tied it together was the fascination with the light. I mean, instead of the resin sort of encased light, and what these did were they sort of described light.
Oh, I see.
And that was sort of the similarity between them.
And they became pretty abstract, I guess, after you worked on them for a while. Yeah,
well, the first ones had to do with a kind of reportage, and then they started to get more fantasy-oriented, and then eventually they turned into the velvet sunsets. And I figured if you're going to do a sunset, there's no reason why you couldn't do it on velvet.
But wouldn't people just kind of laugh at the idea that you were using black velvet? I mean, that was kind of the epitome of bad art, was black velvet paintings from Mexico.
Well, I mean, as you can imagine, this was not a material that I sort of willingly took on. I mean, it was one I had a lot of sort of trepidation about it, just for that reason. But I liked it just because it was black.
You had to prove something by it, by taking this kind of offbeat thing, didn't you?
Well, I mean, if you're going to do sunsets, there's no reason why you can't do it on velvet. I mean, that was my logic. I mean, in other words, the whole idea of doing a sunset was absurd enough that it wasn't any more absurd to do it on black velvet.
I see.
I mean, that to me seemed completely consistent. The other thing is that the material is so seductive. that is the velvet. And it's the blackest black that I could find. And so what I did, instead of painting on it, that is by trying to avoid, you know, the Tijuana Association. I mean, I was naive enough to think that I could avoid it, you know, by putting metal flake and things like that on it. But that's where the velvet started.
But what did you put on it? You didn't paint on it. How did you make those velvet sunsets?
I used stencils and spray cans and metal flake, things like that.
And then you went on and actually started collaging velvet.
Yeah, but that came later, and that was a result of other sort of images.
Okay, so let's go on then from black velvet.
Okay, after the velvets, then I went back to the sunsets again and did a few paintings, which is the first time I'd ever sort of done actual paintings of it. And then...
so that's where we got the 10 years. We have a span.
Yeah.
You did something else in between.
Yeah, and then in the late 70s and early 80s, I started going back to the velvets again. And those particular ones were the ones that were collaged.
And how, when you talk about collaging a velvet, what did you put on it?
Bits and pieces of stuff. Like I go down to, there's a place in downtown Los Angeles where you get costume jewelry. I forget the name of it, in fact, but I'm sure you've been there, Joan. And I'd get all the stuff and just sort of put it on. But the image was bottom of the ocean at night. That's where the idea, that's why I came back to the velvets.
To collage. To
do the collage stuff, yeah.
And did you actually sew the pieces on?
No.
What did you do?
No, I just sort of pin it up on the wall, and then I'd have my assistant would come in and sort of pin them directly to the fabric and then sew them. If they were sewn, I wouldn't take them off. If I had to do the sewing,
I see.
And I'd never take them off. And I don't have the patience to do it anyway.
Okay, then where did we go?
Then I went to India.
Then I was just going to ask you. You lived in India because I visited you in India,
right? And
your work changed tremendously there.
Well, that was because they didn't have any velvet. But they had fantastic mosquito netting, so I got into a similar material using the mosquito net.
And you made collages?
Made collages with that.
How long were you there?
Well, I was there not long enough. It was about 4 or 5 months.
But did the color and the city around you influence you as far as colors?
It's inevitable that you cannot not be affected by that place.
Have you worked anywhere else where you've gone to live?
Yeah, I did it down in Mexico once, this island off of Yucatan called Isla Mujeres. Where,
right.
If we're on the subject, I went down for a month and took some pastels, and I started drawing the flower arrangements that are left in the room. Mm-hmm. And the lady who was their caretaker saw me drawing, and I'd put each drawing up on the wall. So every day she would bring me a larger arrangement.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Now I think you've turned your attention. We went through Los Angeles International Airport. You did some LAX paintings, and now you're painting about Las Vegas.
Yeah. Well,
why? Are you living there?
No, hardly. Because it's so obscene, and it's an extension of the same idea of the fascination with light, which goes back to the resins.
I see.
And that's the one thing that's sort of been the thread through all the stuff that I've been doing over the years.
So the lights were at the airport. You did lights. You did looking down on cities. You now Las Vegas, just bright lights, nothing.
In your face lights. And the thing that's so fascinating.
Is that this in your face lights?
That's one. Yeah, in the face.
hold
that
this.
one. That one's much less so. You want me to hold this up?
Hold on up. Let's see this in your face light, because it really is. It's.
There's a fountain in front of Caesar's Palace.
Oh, yeah.
That the water looks like Scope mouthwash. So there's a combination of that fountain and then some lights that I just sort of put in there.
Are you living in Vegas and doing this?
No. What I do is I'll go for a weekend or 3 or 4 days and take a lot of photographs, think about what to do, and then come back and do some paintings.
Did you do a lot of these things with photographs? Do you use them as reference
Use photographs constantly. Yeah.
You come from a graphic background.
Yeah.
Do you think that affects your work? Or did it affect your work in any way? Are you real precise about how you do things?
I think it's less to do with being precise. I think much more to do with sort of image making. That is, that sort of the images originate from photographs.
And
I don't actually copy the photographs, but I just use them as a kind of reference. When I was doing the City Night, you know, the LAX group of paintings, I'd go up in a helicopter and take a lot of photographs. But the purpose of those was to just to see how light congealed, you know, like images of light.
More kind of like this then, right? Just light moving around, or?
Well, that's a Las Vegas painting. That's one of those. It's a stack of neon. There's a showboat that has a neon stack on it, and there's a certain absurdity to it, and that's the reason why I did that one.
Where do you think you'll be going after Las Vegas, Peter?
I don't know. I'm not finished with Las Vegas yet. I have no idea.
How long do you think that'll keep your interest?
Hard to say. I'm just starting. So, I don't know. I mean, it could go, I don't know.
Have you done any theater work?
No.
Did you ever think of doing
No.
designs for theater?
No.
Or film work? Film work you've done.
Once. And that was enough. No more of that.
Why do you say that?
Well, I worked on Day of the Locust, the one that Schlesinger did. I guess it was in '75. And, I mean, it was certainly enlightening to be involved in that process. But I was so grateful when I was finished, and I'd go back to the studio, and I was alone, away from that process, that I never wanted to get involved in that again.
Do you think it kind of kills your creativity? You can't create because people are telling you what to do for a certain scene?
Yeah, that's a given. I mean, that I knew that going into it.
Oh, you did?
It was just all the machinations that go on with people. You know how that is.
I know how that is, and I know that we were happy that you were with us today, Peter. Are you teaching?
Yeah, in fact, George
Herms?
Yeah, George and I are working at, there's an experimental school in Santa Monica, which is the College of Art, Architecture, and Design.
Is that Joan Abramson?
Yeah.
What?
Right.
She's the
honcho there.
Joan Abramson.
Yeah, she is.
And you're both working there?
Yeah.
Both teaching there?
Yeah.
Other artists are teaching there too.
Yeah, Laddie.
Laddie Dill.
Right, and Deborah Sussman is teaching there, and Bob Wilhite, and I can't. Let's see. That's all I can remember right now.
Well, I think that's a great idea to have a school like that where artists are teaching, and I want to thank Peter Alexander for being with us. Thanks, Peter. And we'll be back after the break with Count Heinrich von Spreti. Don't go away. I'm Joan Quinn, and we're back with Heinrich Graf von Spreti, who is the head of the Munich office for Sotheby's. He knows about German 19th century paintings, objets de vertu, and Russian works of art, specializing in Faberege. Welcome. Should I call you Count or Heinrich?
Heinrich.
Actually, does the Graf von in front of your name
means Count of.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's what it means.
So you can't say Count Heinrich Graf von Spreti.
No, this is completely wrong.
But we don't know about that.
Doesn't matter.
How did you get interested in art? Because you were a lawyer, or you had a degree in law.
I was brought up in a Bavarian country house, in my family's country seat, which is a collection of art objects. The house wasn't sold since 1415, so you can imagine what was accumulated there. So I was brought up with lots of art objects around me, and I just wanted to make this my profession. But when I started thinking about what to do, my father said, not art, that won't bring you any money. You must become a lawyer. So
is that how it happened?
This was how it happened. So I studied law, and after my first exam, I asked my father, could I just go to London for a little bit? And the little bit is now 14 years. I never returned really to Munich to live there, only in the last few years when I took over Sotheby's Munich office. But I lived in London for 10 years and was trained at Sotheby's in London.
Oh, but that's the other interesting thing. For you to have gone to law school, and you were trained in a bank as well.
Yeah.
You were a banker, and then you had to take this training course at Sotheby's?
Yes, completely new. as a student.
What is that course?
It takes a year, and you get a training in all different fields for Sotheby's.
Does everyone have to take that?
No, but they have got this course for about 50 to 60 people a year. And you're not allowed to specialize, to say, oh, I only want to have pictures, or I only want to have to do with carpets and so on. You have to sort of see the whole variety, and you see how it sort of works, like from somebody bringing an object, you don't know what it is, till the final day of sale, and how it sort of, you know, develops, and you do research work and everything. That's what you really learn there. And then I got really so interested, I wanted to stay with it.
So it's like a laboratory in a way. And where do they give those schools?
In London, there's very close.
Only?
Only in London, yes. It's very close to Sotheby's, and you're taken to the sale room, you're taken to specialized departments, you're allowed to work in departments sometimes. So, art experts from Sotheby's give you special tours in the evening when the offices are closed and explain to you about the objects which come up for sale.
Well, tell us a little bit. I know you're a specialist on all these things, but we say objects of virtu.
Doesn't mean anything to you, does it?
No, tell our viewers what it means.
The word comes from a 19th century English expression, a gentleman with great virtue, which is not spelled like it's V-I, it's V-E-R-T-U, meant somebody who was very refined and very elegant. So it meant he had beautiful, detailed objects, like a beautiful snuff box, a lovely desk seal.
Like the box?
Like the box which I've shown you. This box here is naturally the ultimate of a snuff box to have. It comes from the collection of Frederick the Great, the King of Prussia, who had over 120, and he had them made matching his various, you know, Rococo dresses in different colors.
So he carried them
He carried special pockets in the back of his tails, of the tailcoat, were special pockets to put them. And to be offered snuff from the king out of this box was a great honor too.
I see.
And there are very few boxes of this quality still in the world.
So there are many different kinds of objects of the gentleman, so to speak.
And it's like a snuff box or a desk seal, little fobs you have on your chains. It's scent bottles, you know, things like that.
I thought it only had to do with gold. So
no, it could be mother of pearl or tortoiseshell with gold inlays of piqué inlay, you know, hardstone objects which are gold mounted, you know, hand warmers. They had pill boxes, little bonbonnières in the 18th century. The sweets were very tiny, little sort of sugary lumps, you know.
You also are a specialist in miniatures. You're talking about little things. So miniature paintings?
Miniature paintings, yeah. They're mainly on ivory, and very often they're mounted in bracelets or in little lockets.
So they're very tiny.
They're very tiny, like 2 or 3 centimeters high. And they are in snuff boxes, sometimes inside the lid. You know, you would have your lover inside, or it would be outside the whole family. Sometimes we have got boxes with like the mother in the middle with the children all around it. It's very much of a memento object when you have miniatures put on it.
And the other thing that I think many people have heard about and maybe don't know why Faberege became so famous in the Russian court. Will you tell us a little bit about that?
I think he really follows on of the 18th century German and French goldsmiths' work. When taste changed, you know, and you didn't need a snuff box anymore, Faberege was very good in taking this and making electric table beds, light switches. You know, he made the everyday object into something incredible, elegant and valuable. He made little stamp dampeners, you know, because the stamps, to make them wet, little rolls, crystal rolls in beautiful hardstone and enamel, little basins. He made letter openers, and even, you know, like a light switch, you know, and electric table beds, which is
frames, I know.
Picture frames
were very
clocks,
popular.
Thermometers, barometers. He made all these sort of things which people wanted to have and needed, but he made them really like an art object.
So Faberege wasn't just for the royalty in
not
Russia.
At all. The thing is, Faberege had a shop in St. Petersburg and in Moscow, in Odessa and in Kiev, and also in London. And he had at one time about 800 employees, which was at this period, you know, turn of the century, a lot. This was a very big company. And he was copied at his time. Like nowadays, people copy, you know, anything modern like Cartier.
He was copied then?
Then already, yes. People tried to imitate his style, because it was very obvious the way he made the things.
Oh, I see. You are involved in the sales. Obviously, Faberege comes up at sales, miniatures, those wonderful objects that you were telling us. But you seem to be also an expert. I think you're the biggest expert we've talked to in royalty.
Yes.
Because like Emperor Franz Joseph and Empress Elizabeth of Austria, you were involved in that sale.
Yes, we had a sale specially arranged in Munich with things which a direct descendants, a grandson of Empress Franz Joseph, was giving for sale, for a charity sale. And we made a very special catalog with, fans from the Empress. As you know, she was very shy, and she had fans even to be used on horseback, like a leather fan we sold, in black for mourning.
How did they have so much? How did they keep all of these things over the years?
Because the Empress had 3 children, Rudolf, who killed himself in Meierling, and then 2 daughters. One daughter married another cousin, another archduke, and the other one married a prince of Bavaria. And these descendants kept everything. They never departed, and they've got cases and cases of all these things. And the Empress, when her son killed himself at Meierling, gave away, let's say, all her colored jewels or objects. She was only using black anymore for the rest of her life. So her daughters got all these things, and it has survived.
So there was more to it than just the opera.
Yes, absolutely. Far more.
Then you were involved in King Manuel II of Portugal.
Yes. He was the last king of Portugal. He was married to a German princess of Hohenzollern and Sigmaringen, went to England, lived in exile, died. His widow went back to Germany, died in 1961, and all her things were just packed up, left in cases, and basically we unearthed it, and said, we could do something about that.
What year was that?
This was in 1989.
Oh, so it was very recent.
Yeah, these things have been not touched from 1961 to then.
Isn't that amazing? And the really most recent one is the Prince Johannes Turnentaxis.
Yeah. This is really the most magnificent collection coming for sale. I mean, there is no princely family in Germany who has got this amount of royal objects, princely jewels, because the royal families within Germany, this is all now family trusts or government property. And this collection is really magnificent.
But it was so, it's so contemporary because they were using it. The princess used it, the prince used it, and up until now.
Yes, the prince died in 1990, in December 1990, and due to the death duties which have to be paid now, the princess decided to sell.
Was she left with anything, or did she
sure
sell
she was,
everything?
and I couldn't say that. No. There's a big group of objects they're holding. I mean, far more. They're keeping more than they're selling.
Oh, so we don't have to worry?
No, she will always be very chic and very elegant.
You have a wonderful picture of the tiara that she was married in, I think. I don't know what year she was married.
She was married in 1980.
Let's see. And she wore this?
She wore that tiara, which the family purchased in 1887. There was a sale in Paris of the French crown jewels. And amongst that was this tiara, which then the grandfather of the late prince purchased. It belonged to Empress Eugenie and was a present of Napoleon III to Eugenie. She's painted by Winterhalter wearing this tiara. I mean, it's a royal jewel of the first category. I mean, we haven't something like this for sale.
It really is something extraordinary. You're involved in all of these things. Do you collect anything yourself, Heinrich?
Yes, I think you cannot avoid that. I think once you are in the art world, I mean, you have to collect something because you see so many things and you feel tempted.
What's tempted you?
I'm collecting things which have to do with Richard Wagner. Not as a person, but his work. I'm a great Wagnerian. I go to Bayreuth every year. I'm collecting stage designs, paintings, drawings, bronzes to do with his operas, with the Nibelungen, illustrated books. This is what I'm collecting. My apartment in London has got hardly any wall space or tables left where there's nothing on it.
Are there drawings of Wagner?
No,
Work that he
yes, like, drawings illustrating the operas, stage designs for Lohengrin, for Tristan.
So that would count in part of your, even if someone else did the drawing?
Yes, naturally.
So that counts?
That counts, absolutely. And illustrated books, this late 19th century books, early 20th century books by Arthur Rackham, these beautiful illustrations of the Valkyries, things like that. But you also get bronzes of Siegfried, slaying the dragon. I've got big ones, small ones. There's lots of things to collect.
Do you come across things and you still get excited about it?
All the time. All the time. I think one never loses this. If you're in this art world and you enjoy art objects, there's always something you see and you just think, you have to have it and think about it.
Before we leave, we've been asking so many of our guests what kind of lifestyle would be the perfect lifestyle. What would be perfect for you, Heinrich?
I'm not complaining about the way it is now. Not at all. I enjoyed it terribly. I would not like... I think I'm possibly somebody who enjoys very much late 19th century. But...
would you like to have lived in that? No.
I would miss a lot. I prefer now.
You prefer now, and we're happy that you were with us now, because if you were living in the 19th century, we wouldn't have you with us.
Awful.
So thanks very much, Heinrich.
Thank you.
Graf von Spreti.
Yeah.
And thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
We'll be back again next time. See you on Joan Quinn, etc.